The house looked the same as every other December, lights along the roofline, slightly uneven. The wreath my mother insisted on reusing every year, even as it faded. The same music playing just a little too low to enjoy and just loud enough to fill silence. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside was where things shifted. We arrived on time, not early, not late. My children stayed close to me at first, new enough to these gatherings to still read the room before relaxing into it. My father greeted us with a nod. My mother smiled, but it didn't quite land. It stopped somewhere before her eyes. "Come in," she said. No mention of the kids by name. That wasn't unusual, not enough to notice on its own. Coats were taken, drinks offered, conversations already in progress continued without pause. My brother was there, my sister, a few extended relatives, everyone arranged in familiar positions, like nothing needed adjusting. The children found a spot near the couch, quiet but observant. They weren't uncomfortable. Just careful. I told myself it was fine, that it would settle. It usually did. The gifts were brought out later after dinner. Boxes stacked neatly, each one labeled in my mother's handwriting. There was a kind of ceremony to it, names called, reactions expected, a rhythm everyone understood. I watched as each person received something. My brother first, then my sister, then cousins one by one. The children sat a little straighter as the pile grew smaller. I noticed before they did, the way my mother skipped over a space where two smaller boxes could have been, the way she avoided looking in their direction as she picked up the next gift. It wasn't a mistake, it was a decision. My youngest glanced at me, not asking anything out loud, just checking if there was something they were missing. I held their gaze for a second, then looked back at my mother. She didn't hesitate. "We don't welcome them," she said. No anger, no raised voice, just a statement placed carefully into the room. The conversation didn't stop immediately. It slowed, shifted, adjusted around what had just been said, as if people were deciding how much attention it deserved. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I understood what mattered more in that moment. My children were watching, and whatever I did next would stay with them longer than anything said at that table. I stood up. "All right," I said, evenly. "We're going." No explanation, no argument, just movement. Coats were gathered, hands held, the door opened, then closed behind us with the same quiet certainty as everything else that night. The drive home was quiet, not tense, not heavy, just quiet. One of them asked eventually, "Did we do something wrong?" "No," I said, and that was the only answer they needed. In the days that followed, I didn't replay the scene the way I thought I might. There was no need. It had been clear. What took longer was something else, understanding what came after. Because moments like that don't exist on their own. They're connected to everything around them, the patterns that allowed them, the structures that supported them. I started noticing things I had stopped questioning, the calls about repairs, the small issues that became my responsibility by default, the way I showed up when something broke, without being asked twice. It wasn't written anywhere, but it was expected. I had always said yes, not out of obligation, out of habit. A week later, my father called. "The heater's acting up," he said. "Can you come take a look?" It was said the same way it always had been, neutral, assumed. I didn't answer immediately, not to create tension, just to make sure I understood my own answer before I gave it. "I won't be able to," I said. A pause. "What do you mean?" "I'm not involved in that anymore." Another pause. "Longer this time. You're being difficult." Maybe. Or maybe I was just being consistent. "They'll need to call someone," I said. I didn't raise my voice, didn't reference Christmas, didn't explain. Because the moment had already explained itself. After that, things began to surface. A leak in the kitchen, a car issue. Small things at first, then larger ones. Each time there was a delay, like they expected I might still step in if given enough time. I didn't, not out of punishment, just alignment. If my children didn't belong in their home, then I couldn't continue behaving like I belonged in their systems. The messages that followed were different from before. Not loud, not demanding, just uncertain. "Can you recommend someone?" Do you know who handled this last time? Practical questions, carefully worded. I answered some of them. Briefly, without stepping back into the role I had stepped out of. We didn't return for the next gathering. There was an invitation, short, neutral, no mention of what had happened. No acknowledgement either. I read it, then set it aside. Not as a statement, just as a choice. At home, things felt quieter. Not empty, just clear. The children didn't ask about it again. They didn't need to. The way we left had already answered the question they didn't know how to phrase. And I realized something I hadn't before. I hadn't left that night because I was excluded. I left because they were. The house with the uneven lights still stands. The wreath is probably still on the door. From the outside, nothing has changed. Inside, though, I imagine things feel different now. Not because of what I said, but because of what I stopped doing, and how quietly that changed everything.